Hi, I'm Keri Stephens, the editor of 24/7, and I'm here with two excellent speakers, Dr. Barbara Christe, Dean of Farmingdale State College's School of Engineering Technology, and Dr. Samantha Jacques, Vice President of McLaren Clinical Engineering Services. Barb and Sam recently wrote a book published by Elsevier titled Introduction to Clinical Engineering, which offers readers an in-depth look into the support and implementation of existing medical technologies used for patient care and clinical safety. My first question, just Barb and Sam, I would love to hear a little bit about the book writing process and what it was like.
Well, thank you so much, Keri. I'd like to talk a little bit about the process that we went through and how we were actually put together, connected by the publisher as bringing two very unique perspectives to the book writing process. And I bring an academic sense, and Sam brings the clinical perspective. And those two unique approaches to writing really complemented each other a great deal. I think we navigated back and forth talking about which topic belonged to whom. And it also helped both of us think more broadly about the profession, all of the aspects that fit into the topic that we wanted to cover and cover thoroughly. So it was a very iterative process, it was very collaborative, and it was a great opportunity to connect two worlds.
Great, thank you. And my next question is, what advice would you give young professionals considering a career in clinical engineering, or HTM as we call it, and why?
Yeah, so we're excited that young professionals have become interested in clinical engineering, and we really want more professionals to join us because this field is really an amazing field that's changing almost on a daily basis, right? You know, not only do we have a little bit of the medical technology side, but also we have a very large integration with IT right now. And so anybody who's really interested in technology can approach clinical engineering from a very different ways, right? If you are hands-on, you can become a technician. If you're more interested in the IT portion of it, you can go into perhaps cybersecurity. It's just a very different field where there are so many aspects that we really can get a lot of people interested in the field. It's not a one-size-fits-all type of field, and so it's super exciting for young people to come join us.
And what issues do you both believe are currently the greatest affecting the HTM field, and why?
Well, I'd like to start just because from the academic perspective, I think we are extremely challenged. There is no school in the university level at a baccalaureate level that offers an undergraduate degree in clinical engineering. And that pipeline, the missing pipeline, is really a challenge for the profession. We lack some academic stature because of that. We lack faculty with academic credentials. And so we're seeing some challenges from the academic side. Sam, why don't you add your perspective too?
Yeah, so from the clinical side, I think that the difference is very clear as to those organizations that have large HTM programs and those organizations that are still struggling to really get their HTM programs integrated into the larger hospital systems. And so, you know, from my perspective, some of the issues that we're having is there are still not great benchmarks or standards across the organizations so that every hospital deals with HTM the same way. And that's everything from, you know, benchmarking as to how many staff you need, benchmarking how we do our work, as well as, you know, how do we go ahead and approach things like cybersecurity. It's very different hospital to hospital to hospital. And so it really also challenges the way that our field is seen because we're not necessarily uniform from site to site to site.
Great. And any other books on the horizon?
So I wrote a book for technicians focused at that level several years ago and updated that with a new edition. And at the time, there was a great deal of clamoring for books. I still think Sam and I both agree there are many books that are needed. And again, that academic stature to encourage publishers to reach out. It was Elsevier that reached out to Sam and I, and to validate that even though this is a small community, relatively speaking, compared to the traditional professions of electrical and mechanical engineering, even as a small community, we have needs to be able to create these benchmarks, as Sam mentioned, these references, these agreed upon topics and definitions. So I do feel that there are quite a few more topics that could be covered in books, and it's really just a matter of elevating the profession, the visibility of the profession, and encouraging publishers to consider these as opportunities.
Great, thank you. And, you know, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that you are two women representing the clinical engineering field, which is largely male dominated. And can you both speak about what that means to you personally?
Yeah, so I think Barb and I have worked together very well, and I think us being two women, you know, didn't necessarily impact that, but I do think being a woman in this field can be challenging. And I know there's more of us behind coming up through the ranks, and that's great to see. But you know, traditionally technology fields have been very male dominated, and I think the two of us working together to publish this book truly shows that women can do anything, and that, you know, we are a force to be reckoned with even within HTM.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's very interesting because we saw a shift in medicine decades ago where it went from a male-dominated field to about 50% women. And there have been many, many calls to improve diversity in the engineering and technology disciplines, and yet we've seen the needle budge almost none. So that shift that we saw in medicine, and even though that's a hard discipline, why can't we seem to be able to make a similar shift in engineering is worrisome, because I believe that without this female perspective, we're missing a whole set of experiences that are important to the profession. And how do we make that shift is a good one, but perhaps some visibility of female leaders is a great opportunity. I will add that when I was hired as dean at my current institution, I tried to suggest, however, that while I was a female, I also hoped I was the most qualified for the position. So I think seeing well-qualified, highly capable females is extremely important as well.
Absolutely. And how do you foresee that this book will move the profession forward?
So I absolutely.
So I'll tell you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sam.
No. So I will say that, you know, I've already used this book in several different ways on the clinical side, and I think the book can be used in a lot of different useful mechanisms. And so, you know, the example I'll give you is, you know, we've been working, as most hospitals are, to improve our medical device cybersecurity. And a lot of those professionals come from a very tech-heavy, IT-heavy background, and they don't have an understanding of what clinical engineering is, what the devices are, what our role is. You know, and a book like this has really helped them to understand where we're coming from and why our problems are very different than what they see in IT. And so from a clinical perspective, there is a real role for this book to help other professions that are liaising with us truly understand what we're about. And so we've been successfully using it as such since it's been published, actually.
So from an academic perspective, it's wonderful to have a reference book for both students and faculty. So the Professional Society of the American College of Clinical Engineering has sought for quite a while to try to work with the biomedical engineering programs, of which there are about 120 undergraduate programs across the country, to help that broader umbrella of engineering discipline to see and better understand clinical engineering. And so this book might be able to serve as a tool to, I don't want to say break in, but to help crack the nut of the biomedical engineering undergraduate degrees and better popularize, no, that's not the right word, to better recruit for clinical engineering and improve awareness. I'm sorry, I used the wrong word, but to improve awareness. That's really, from an academic perspective, what I'm strongly hoping comes through this, so that even if students aren't taking a course in clinical engineering, they can look at this reference as a way to better understand what it is.
Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful conversation, Barb and Sam, and I encourage everyone watching to pick up their book. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.